Tread lightly. This is more like it. What is it now? Speak, fool. Ah, at last. Finally. No one orders me around. Frostmourne hungers. What is it now? Speak, fool.
More gold is required. More gold is required.
Tread lightly. Ah, at last. This is more like it. Frostmourne hungers. What is it? Finally. This is more like it. Ah, at last. No one orders me around. Finally.
Our forces are under attack.
Tread lightly. Speak, fool. Frostmourne hungers. Finally. Ah, at last.
More gold
Speak,
is
fool.
required.
What is it now? No one orders me around. Speak, fool. This is more like it. Frostmourne hungers. Tread lightly. This is more like it. Finally. Frostmourne hungers. Ah, at last. I'll make sure you see. Faithless coward. Frostmourne hungers. For the Lich King. Finally. This is more like it. At last. Your pain shall be legendary. Your pain shall be legendary. What is it now? Finally.
More gold
Speak,
is
fool.
required.
What is it now? Tread lightly. Frostmourne hungers. Ah, at last. This is more like it. This is more like it. Finally. Frostmourne hungers. At last. I'll make sure you so. At last. This is more like it. Frostmourne hungers. Finally. For the Lich King. At last. This is more like it. Frostmourne hungers. Finally, Frostmourne hungers. At last. Finally, Frostmourne hungers. This is what I'll make sure. At last, no one orders me. Tread lightly. Your pain. At last. Frostmourne hungers. This is more like it. You will know anything. This is more like it. Frostmourne hungers. At last. Now, Frostmourne. Finally. Victim scout. Finally. Your pain shall be legendary. What is it? Now, Frostmourne. At last. Speak, fool. This is more like it. What is it? No one. Tread lightly. What is it now? Speak, fool. No one wants me. Tread lightly. What is it now? Tread lightly. Frostmourne hungers. Speak, fool. At last. No one orders me around. This is more like it. Frostmourne hungers. Finally. At last. This is more like it. Finally. Frostmourne hungers. At last. Finally. Oh, Frostmourne hungers. This is more like it. Finally. Frostmourne hungers. Speak, fool. Tread lightly. At last. This is more like it. At last. You will end this. This is more like it. For the Lich King. Finally. Frostmourne hungers. Frostmourne hungers. For the Lich King. Finally. At last. What is it now? This is more like it. No one orders me around.
What is required?
Tread lightly. Speak, fool. No one orders me around. What is it now? At last, Frostmourne hungers. This is more like it. You will know everything. Frostmourne hungers. Finally. I'll make sure you suffer. At last. This is more like it. At last. last. Finally. Fitness. Frostborn hungers. At last. This is more like it. Finally. At last. Frostborn hungers. This is more like it. This is more like it. Finally. Frostborn hungers. At last.
Our hero has been killed.
Tread lightly. Finally. Frostborn hungers. Speak, fool. This is more like it. No one orders me. At last. Speak, fool. No one orders me around. Frostborn hungers. Tread lightly. This is more like it. At last. Finally.
Your pain shall be legendary.
Finally. Frostborn hungers. Now Frostborn. At last. This is more like it. Frostborn hungers. At last. You will have now Frostborn. For the Lich King. End this. Coward. Finally. This is more like it. What is it now? Speak, fool. What is it now? At last. No one wants me around. Tread lightly. Speak, fool. Tread lightly. Frostborn hungers. No one orders me around. Finally. This is more like it. Frostborn hungers. At last. Finally. At last.
Your pain shall be
Finally. Frostborn hungers. This is more like it. This is more like it. Frostborn hungers. For the Lich King. Your pain shall be last. Now, Frostborn. Finish. Speak, fool. No one orders me around. Tread lightly.
more gold is required.
Speak, fool. No one orders me around. This is more like it. What is it now? Finally, at last, Frostborn hungers. Tread lightly. This is more finally, no one is me. Frostborn hungers.
Your pain shall be legendary.
Now, at last, for the Lich King. This is more What is it now? Frostborn hungers. This is more like it. Ah, at last. Tread lightly.
More gold is required.
No one orders me. What is it now? Frostborn hungers. Tread lightly. Speak, fool. What is it now? Finally. Finally. Tread lightly. Frostborn hungers. Speak, fool. Ah, at last. This is more like it. Frostborn hungers. This is more like it. Ah, at last. No one is around. At last. Finally. I'll make sure you suffer. This is fitness. Frostborn hungers. This is Lich King. Frostborn hungers.
Your pain shall be
What is it now? Ah, at last. Finally. Ah, at last. Tread lightly. Finally. Frostborn hungers. This is more like it. Speak, fool.
more gold
No
is
one orders
required.
me around. No one orders me around. Speak, fool. Frostborn hungers.
We demand additional lumber.
Tread lightly. Ah, at last. Finally. This is more like it. Frostborn hungers. This is more like it. Finally. Ah, at last. Ah, at last. This is more like it. Finally. Frostborn hungers. For the Lich King. Frostborn hungers. Now. This is more like it. What is it? At last.
Your pain shall be
Tread lightly. This is more like it. No one orders me. Speak, fool. What is it now?
more gold is required.
Tread lightly. Speak, fool. No one orders me.
More gold is
Speak,
required.
fool. No one orders me around. Tread lightly. Frostborn hungers. At last. What is it now? What is it now? Finally, this is more like it. Frostmourne hungers. No one is moving around. Tread lightly. Speak, fool. What is it now? Fitness your pain shall be ended. At last. At last. Fitness count. This is more like it. No one orders me around. Glory to the Scourge. For the Lich King, now Frostmourne, your pain shall be ended. Frostmourne hungers. Finally, this is more like it. Frostmourne hungers. Finally, at last. Speak. This is more like it. Finally, at last. Frostmourne hungers. Tread lightly. Speak, fool. Tread lightly. No one orders me around. What is it now? Finally.
More gold
What is
required.
It? Speak, fool. Frostmourne hungers. This is more like it. Tread lightly. At last. Finally. No one orders me. No one orders me around. At last. Frostmourne hungers. This is more like it. At last. This is more like it. Now, Frostmourne. You will be endless. Frostmourne hungers. Finally. Frostmourne hungers. Finally. At last. For the Lich King. This is more like it. At last. Finally. This is more like it. Frostmourne hungers. You will be endless. Finally. This is more like it. At last.
Demand additional lumber.
Speak, fool. What is it now? This is more like it. Speak. Frostmourne hungers. At last. Finally. Tread lightly. This is more like it. This is more like it. Your pain shall be legendary. At last. Frostmourne. At last. This is more like it. Tread lightly. What is it now? Ah, at last. No one orders me around. Speak.
More gold
Speak.
is required. We demand additional lumber.
Frostborn. At last. What is it now? This is more like it. Frostborn hungers. Finally. Frostborn hungers. At last. This is more like it. Finally. At last. Finally. Frostborn hungers. This is more like it. Now. Pain of the legendary. This is more like it. Frostborn hungers. Finally. At last. For the Lich King, this is more like it. Frostborn hungers. Finally. At last. Frostborn This is more like Frostborn hungers. Finally. At last. Speak, fool. Tread lightly. No one knows me. At last.
We demand additional lumber.
What is it now? Tread lightly. Speak, fool. Speak, fool. Frostborn hungers. Finally. This is more like it. Frostborn hungers. For this. They shall be legendary. At last. Now. This is more like it. This is more like it. Frostborn hungers. Finally. At last. At last. Frostborn hungers. This is more like it. This is more like it. Faithless coward. Frostborn hungers. At last. What is it? Finally. No one orders me around. Frostborn hungers. At last. Finally. Frostborn hungers. At last.
Not enough mana. Not enough mana.
This is your fate. This This is more like it. Frostmourne hunger. No one orders me around. What is it now? Finally. Tread lightly. At last. At last. Finally.
We demand additional lumber.
This is more like it. Frostmourne hungers. Tread lightly. At last. You will know endless torment. Speak, fool. This is more like it. Frostmourne hungers. Finally. Frostmourne hungers. At last. Tread lightly. For the Lich King. This is more like it. At last, finally, Frostmourne now. This is Frostmourne hungers. For the Lich King. This is more like it. Now, at last, Frostmourne hungers. At last. This is at last. Fate. Frostmourne hunger. This is more like it. Speak, fool. Finally. Your pain shall be legendary. This is more like it. At last. No one. No one orders me around.
We demand more gold.
Tread lightly. What is it now? Speak, fool. At last. This is more like it. What is it now? Frostmourne hungers. Frostmourne hungers. This is What is it now? Speak, fool. Frostborn hunger. At last, Frostborn hunger. For Lich King. This is more like it. At last, finally, Frostborn hunger. At last, Frostborn hunger. Tread lightly. No one orders me around. What is it now? Speak, fool. Frostmourne hungers. This is more than at last, Frostmourne hungers. This is at last. This is at last. Frostborn hunters. Finally. At last. Frostborn hunters. So no glory to the scourge. Frostborn hunters. Our hero has been killed. last. This is at last. Frostborn hunger. This is Frostborn hunger. At last. Frostborn hungers. Finally. At last. Frostborn hungers. This is more like it. At last. Frostborn hungers. This is more like it. At last. Frostborn hungers. This is at last. Finally. This is what Frostborn hungers. At last. This is Frostborn hungers. At last. Finally. This is what fate was done. Finally. Frostborn hungers. Glory to the scourge. At last. This is what Lich King. What is it? Speak, fool. No one orders me around. Finally, Frostborn hungers. At last. At last. This is finally Frostborn hungers. Frostborn hungers. This is what at last. This is fine. Frostborn hungers. At last. Frostborn hungers. Now, Frostborn, you will